So I just finished reading Tony Tulathimutte's debut novel, Private Citizens, and it was great. And then I thought, am I smart enough to give it 5 stars? And so I picked it up and started reading it again immediately. And I never do that with books, and I want to talk about that later, but for now, let's stick with the story. I loved Private Citizens. It is an absolute celebration of language. It is dense with cliquey micro-jargon from tech bros argot to the parlance of MFA programs, earnest New Ageism, self-actualization seminars, and the vernacular of porn. Tony is showing some considerable literary chops with textual flourishes and wordplay throughout. He's like this dog rolling around in the mud of language, and I love that. This book feels like the culmination of years of tiny notes, literary bon mots, digressions, and midnight ramblings on things like creative genius, millennial parenting, racial microaggressions, and personal branding in this digital age. But he comes armed with such a copious amount of ephemera that the seams are invisible. This isn't like the plot is some frail scaffolding that is trying to piece together these separate novel ideas. But I'm finding it hard to talk about this book without coming off like a dick. And even that, Tulathimutte has acknowledged, written about, and refuted, while admitting to doing exactly that, thus reinforcing the prior arguments, while admitting and acknowledging to doing that, and on until you reach this sort of mental stalemate. I mean, do you see what I mean? I keep waiting for Matt Damon to show up, explain this to me, and then ask, how do you like them apples? Alright, so let's just stick with the plot. We're following the story of 4 recent Stanford grads living in San Francisco. We have Linda, who is just a hot mess. She's an aspiring writer and a shit disturber of the first order. Corey is a dreadlocked, Jewish, bi-curious, vegan, social activist, the type you see on street corners with a clipboard asking you to care about AIDS awareness, no-kill animal shelters, global warming, and Katrina reconstruction. Heinrich is a heavily medicated scientist that's barely functioning. It's just spinning his wheels. And Will is a short, dot-com moneyed Asian with a racial micro-trigger. I mean, no wonder this thing keeps getting referenced as a millennial novel. I mean, I don't hate these characters. I just feel a sense of schadenfreude at their earnest dedication to screwing up. But I'm a Gen Xer. I'm supposed to disparage the generation that comes after me. Fittingly, Douglas Copeland's Generation X celebrates its 25th anniversary this week. And Private Citizens feels like the fitting successor to the throne following these 20-somethings in the early 2000s. Tulathimutte doesn't adopt an ironic pose or keep his distance. He's completely invested and bearing it all. And while it borders on satire, I mean, no one actually talks this way. The ending is convenient and perhaps a tad on the nose. I still felt that Tulathimutte was committed to the idea, and I can tell this is going to be a divisive book. Not everyone is going to like it as much as I did, and that's what I kept trying to do with the second reading, is unpack this literary sleight of hand that had me oohing in glee when I know others are going to grimace in disdain. I can already hear the objections. It's too full of itself. The characters are wholly unlikable. It reads like a MFA class ate a thesaurus and shit this book out. It doesn't have to be the next great American novel. It's good enough that it's great right now, and I loved it even with the second reading, which is huge for me. So let's talk a little bit about rereading. The last book I reread was Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel when I knew she was coming back into town for the One Book One community. Prior to that, I think I've read Jane Eyre 5 times. I read Macbeth prior to seeing every show, which is at least 4 times. And I've read Infinite Jest twice. The same motivations that has me DNFing a 2-star book also prevents me normally from rereading. It's like Michael over at his channel at Knowledge Lost, lamenting about the finite number of books left to him in his lifetime and freaking out a little bit. I mean, that time you spend rereading a novel could be time discovering your next favorite book. But I had a friend in high school that reread the Lord of the Rings trilogy every summer. A lot of booktubers out there are rereading Harry Potter. And I've almost been convinced by several booktubers to revisit William Faulkner's Absalom, which I absolutely did not get. I mean, this guy does not like punctuation at all. But maybe it's worth checking out again, since it's been over 15 years since I read it last, and maybe my impression has changed. What about you guys? Do you guys reread books? Or do you have a book that you revisit religiously if you have a reading slump or in the summertime, or it's your go-to read that you dip in and out of all the time? Love to hear it in your comments below. Thanks a lot.